All right, so Craig, should we dive into it?
Let's do it.
Okay, folks, welcome. I'm Bill Kramer. I'm CEO of Wonderful Machine, and I'm here with Craig Oppenheimer, who is our executive producer. We're going to be talking about treatments today. Craig has a bit of a presentation to show some treatment samples, and we also have Colin Lenton on the call, and Colin might be jumping in because I think one of the treatments is one of his. And Craig, do we have anybody else on the call today that we should introduce?
Not that I'm showing treatments for, but it's great to see everyone. I know all you guys, so it's good to see you.
And just one quick thought about this idea of treatments. In my own career, I started out doing editorial photography for many years, and it was a while before I was doing advertising shoots that required treatments. I only did a few back when I was shooting, but I remember at first thinking, what is this treatment? Why do I need to do a treatment? Isn't an estimate enough? And when I did have the rare occasion to work on a project with a lot of dollars associated with it, I realized that these ad agencies or brands who might be asking for a proposal from a photographer have their jobs riding on these projects, and it becomes really important for them to do their due diligence to make sure that the photographers that they're considering for a project really understand the project, and they want to do the project, and they have the capability of doing the project. And if you're bidding on a $5,000 assignment, you might not need to do a treatment. But if you're bidding on a $50,000 or $150,000 project, chances are a client is going to want to see is going to want to have a little bit more convincing to be confident that when they show your proposal to the client, that the client feels like they've done their job to make sure that you're the right person for that job, and that you've really articulated your vision for the shoot, and that you've got the capability, you've got what it takes to actually pull it off. So Craig has done a ton of these, and we're going to tell you a little bit more about that today. So Craig, take it away.
Cool. Well, thanks. Hey, everybody. It's good to see all your faces, the ones that I can see. So as you all know, I think almost all of you I've consulted with to help put together estimates and produce projects from start to finish. Over the past 5 or 6 years, a big part of that estimating process has focused not only on just the fees and expenses in an estimate, but also the overall pitch to agencies in the form of what we call the treatment and what Bill just described. Most projects are triple bid these days, meaning that a client will typically reach out to at least 3 photographers. I say at least because sometimes it's more. And I think it's important to know that you shouldn't ever think that you are the only photographer talking to a client on a project. And because of that, and because of the just general oversaturation of photographers in the marketplace, photographers really can't let the work speak for themselves or for itself, like on your website. You really need to pitch a client and show examples of your work and discuss your approach and express written enthusiasm for an opportunity. And all of that can be done in a treatment, in addition to just talking with your client. It gives them something tangible to know that you're excited about a project and that you would be the right fit for it. More so, I think treatments are an opportunity to show your personality. And your personality is essentially an extension of your brand. And I think that really goes a long way with the people that might be hiring you. I think it's good to, it's one thing to have your fees and expenses on a document. It's another to show your work or your face on your website. It's another to really show your personality and your treatment, to let them know that you would be a cool person to work with. A lot of these, large projects, if you have to spend a week or 2 weeks with a client, they want to know that you're a cool person to hang out with and that you'll be fun. And a treatment is a great opportunity to show them that. So what's included in a treatment specifically, and what does one look like? Well, I'm glad you asked. At a very basic level, a treatment can include a very brief write-up expressing enthusiasm and gratitude for a project and showing a few portfolio pieces. If you are super crunched for time, it could be a 2 or 3 page document, a couple paragraphs explaining why you're excited about it, and then a few pictures after that. That's the bare minimum you should do. But if you're really pinched, like that's okay. And if someone asks for a treatment and you're freaking out, like that's okay to present. On the other end of the extreme, a treatment can include abundant details on pre-production plans, lighting approaches, a bio on you, a bio on the crew that you're going to be hiring, styling approaches, location scouting, casting talent, the estimate itself along with terms and conditions, and really any other pertinent info for a project. Most treatments fall somewhere in between those two polar opposites. Sometimes it does include the estimate. Sometimes we send the estimate as a separate document. There's no hard and fast rules and right and wrong way to do it. But like I said, it's typically somewhere in between those two extremes. I think generally it's a good idea to have a treatment that is about 90% ready to get out the door for any kind of project. And therefore you only need to make a couple quick tweaks, maybe change a couple pictures, maybe change a couple words. So that way when a client asks you to put something together, you have something that's pretty ready to go. That's branded, designed well, and that you can just tweak quickly on the go to send off to them. So I think really the best way to keep talking about this is to show a couple of examples and maybe open it up to Q&A. And feel free to jump in if you have any questions. So I'm gonna try to share my screen here. Let's see. Share. Okay, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Okay, so this is a treatment from photographer Clay Cook. He's down in Louisville. And a couple of these estimates or treatments I'm going to share, I've redacted some of the information. Some of the other information it was kind of okay to share. And I talked with Clay about this. So this treatment, first, as soon as you open it, you just get his branding, which again, a treatment should be the extension of your branding. So, he starts here. Clay definitely has sort of a design thing going on with his treatments that I know he worked hard on. It hits you right over the head right at the beginning, him looking all giddy for a project in the background there. And it hits you right with a thank you. So I think first and foremost, whether you're on a phone call or whether it's in a treatment or an email, as soon as you have the opportunity, I think it's important to express gratitude that a client is even reaching out in the first place. This treatment was for the Kentucky Children's Health Insurance Program, also called K-CHIP, which you'll see we refer to in here. But like right off the bat, he's just thanking them for the opportunity. There's a little bit of a bio. I'll read it real quick. I think it's well written. It says, when I clicked the shutter for the first time, never did I imagine it would develop into the opportunity of working with so many people in so many unique places. Throughout my career, I've learned a lot about photography. I've learned a lot about culture and artistry. My eye to this project may not be what you're used to, but creative thinking inspires change, and I believe change is growth. I often break the rules of photography, but I know the mold and making of a great photograph. I sincerely appreciate your interest, and I'm excited to share the ideas we have in store for K-CHIP. So this is like a perfect intro that just by changing that last word, this is applicable to any treatment that he could put together. And before I go any further, I don't think he joined us, but Clay, speak up if you are on here. I know a couple of people just joined late. If not, I'm just going to keep going. Okay. Anyway, right off the bat, a quick, well-written thank you, a picture of him in the background. You see his contact info on the left. On to the next page here. Let's see. Okay. So oftentimes it's a good idea to discuss your approach to the project scope. So, in this instance here, this top picture at first, this is for a children's hospital campaign. So this is like the perfect photo to show here. And then he paired that with some text on the bottom. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically it's even in very broad terms, it's a good idea to just explain how you're going to go about the project, what the project is, and kind of regurgitate the creative that an agency or a brand has given you and share your thoughts on it. Some treatments get really into, how I'm going to set up the lights and, how we're going to go about every single step of the process. But other times it's okay to be a little bit more vague. And a lot of this language that he's using here, again, it's 90% of that is going to be applicable to any treatment that he puts together. So this is a slide that's pretty much good to go for any client. So the next thing on his treatment is some inspiration. So again, the two things you need to include are some kind of written statement and photos from your portfolio. Yes, a client can just go to your website and look at your work, but this is an opportunity to pull specific images from your website and from your archive. So shots that aren't on your website that you want clients to see. So here he included some reference images. I've also seen photographers include images in their treatment that they didn't shoot, that they are going to be using as kind of inspiration to how they want their images to look in the end. I think that's totally fine as long as it's super clear that you didn't shoot those specific photos. Ideally, you'd have a page or two of photos that you, of course, shot, and then a page or two of inspirational photos found elsewhere. You don't necessarily have to do that, but sometimes I think if photographers don't have the shots in their archive or in their portfolio that the clients are looking for, or they may not feel that they are the best fit, honestly, for a project, it's okay to show a few images and then show a few inspirational shots to show how your technique can be applied to their creative concept. So again, here, portfolio inspiration, more shots from Clay. Just a really nicely branded slide here. This, wonder and goodness, I think was some copy that was used throughout the creative process, and just a really fantastic shot to be used in this treatment here. So in this case, we did, I see I redacted it here, but we did include the estimate within the treatment. So typically we have a very formal way we use blink bid. All the estimates kind of get cranked out and look the same. He took it and changed it up and put it in this format and designed it in such a way that it looked a little bit different, and I think stands out. Again, our terms and conditions come after that, and most importantly, he gave them a place to sign. So again, there's no right or wrong way to either include or not include a treatment. The estimate, but sometimes we'll provide a treatment that has the fees and expenses in there, and then separately, we'll have a ton of back and forth on the numbers. So, it's very rare that you just submit, as you guys know, one estimate and that's it, and they say yes or no. There's typically, many different rounds of revisions. So that's Clay's treatment here. I think he did.
Craig, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So with the signature page, how much is that sort of symbolic, and how much have you ever seen anybody actually sign the treatment and send it back?
I've never seen anyone sign a treatment and send it back. Typically, it starts there, and that's like the initial, here I am, I'm the photographer, here's everything you need to know about me, here's my initial fees and expenses, and then there's a whole back and forth on, negotiating it. And of course, in that negotiating process, you don't want to have to resubmit the treatment every single time. It's kind of overkill. So it's okay to just from then on out, submit PDFs or however you're sending over your estimates to your client, and eventually they'll hopefully either sign your estimate or give you a purchase order, and that all kind of happens outside of the initial treatment.
One more thought. Have you ever talked with clients, or have you ever sat in on what this looks like on the other end? I sort of imagine that you've got a group of art buyers and maybe the client sitting there back before COVID in person, but now on Zoom, and having them look through those 3 or 4 treatments and talking about who they want to hire. Do you have any insight into that actual process of the client reviewing the treatments from the different photographers?
Yeah, in fact, a lot of times they use the treatments to pitch their ideas and photographers to clients in client meetings. So a lot of times, an art buyer and creative team, they might know who they want to work with and who is the photographer recommend for any given project right from the start. And, they collect these treatments not only to discuss internally and kind of look through it and get a sense of the photographer's personality and work, but when they go to pitch their client, when the agency is in the meeting with their client, they say, here's the overall creative campaign, here's who we have in mind to shoot it, and they'll show 3 treatments to their clients. And right now, whether it's over Zoom or previously if it was in person, in a person meeting, a lot of times they use it that way, or they'll send all 3 digitally to their clients if it's a less formal presentation. So you should know, I think it's a big point to know that sometimes your treatments don't stop at the agency. They of course end up with the client as well. or if you're dealing with the client directly, it's, going right to them too.
And sorry, one more thought, and I'll shut up. Have you ever had a situation where the art buyer comes back and says, "Hey, I want to be able to present this, but I see this thing that's missing, or this thing that I would want you to tweak." Do you ever have the art buyer sort of advocating for a photographer and like coaching them on how to make that treatment better so that it presents better?
Sometimes I think if you have a really great relationship with an art buyer, they might give you some inside tips. But more or less, I think it's an opportunity for you as the photographer to show your personality and what you want to show them. Your website can be your more formal, this is me and everything I have to offer. And the treatment can be like, this is my personality and this is how I'm going to tailor all of that directly to you. So I see more art buyers and art producers coaching and helping photographers with the fees and expenses more so than here's what we want you to show in your treatment. There was one instance, and that link that we sent out for the expert advice article on treatments, if you guys read it, hope you did. There was one estimate from a photographer named Cesar Lima. In that instance, the client or the agency specifically told us, and all of the photographers bidding, specifically what pages they wanted to see in the treatment. But other than that, that was like the only time that's ever happened. Typically they say, send me a treatment, and it's up to the photographer to decide kind of what to include in there or what not to include in there. That time it was a very formal bidding process, and they gave us a list of all the pages they wanted to see, including crew bios and locations, and the locations must be on page 10. It was like that kind of a prescribed thing. That was the only time I've ever seen anything like that, though.
And I got one more. Is the art buyer always going to tell the photographer when they expect a treatment beyond just a simple estimate, or is it usually up to the photographer to realize, hey, this is a big job? And in times when it is up to the photographer, is there a sort of a cutoff for a budget? Like if you're bidding on a $5,000 project, are you going to do a treatment, or is there in your own mind sort of a cutoff where, okay, this is going to require more than just a cost estimate?
To answer the latter part of that first, I think there is no project too small to send a treatment for, especially because it's so easy to have a treatment just kind of ready to go. Again, if you have one that's like 95%, if all you have to do is change a client name and send it off, it will never hurt you to do it, even if it's for a $500 editorial assignment. I think it helps you stand out. What was the first part of your question? I forget. Right.
Just is the art buyer always going to say, "Hey, can you send me a treatment?" Or if they say, "Hey, can you send a proposal or can you send an estimate?" You should just know that it should probably be a treatment.
Yeah, I'd say, occasionally they'll say, "Hey, send an estimate and a treatment." Most of the time, it's up to the photographer to just take it upon themselves to make it happen. Again, sometimes it's like that project I was just talking about. Sometimes it was very prescribed. It's a very formal process, and they said specifically, send us an estimate and send us a treatment. Sometimes a art buyer might be like, yeah, send me an estimate. If you can work up a treatment, that would be great. They kind of will say it kind of off the cuff. I think just always be prepared to send one and always expect to have to do it. I think sometimes I know timing can be super challenging. Clients will reach out Monday morning and need an estimate Monday afternoon, and it might take you all that time to put the fees and expenses together, let alone put together some kind of beautiful treatment. But if you do have the time, I think it's always worth putting something together, whether or not they ask for it or not. All right, so I want to show you another treatment here from Colin, actually. There are two documents. Before I jump in, again, I've redacted some of the stuff. Colin, while we have you, do you want to say a few words just about not necessarily this project, but just kind of how you've put together treatments before, and if you feel that they've helped you win some projects?
Sure. Yeah. I kind of, I think, come at it the same way that Bill described earlier. I started doing editorial photography and corporate photography, and the whole treatment thing is relatively new to me as of maybe like the last 4 or 5 years. And my treatments have evolved quite a bit over time, from basically just being like a, a really crappily designed PDF with just a handful of photos that I threw on there, to I've gone the full extreme where I've hired a graphic designer to build out a treatment for me at great expense. And that one looked great, but I realized was not really super sustainable for every job that I was bidding on. And then I've kind of landed now on I have what you described, Craig, like a basic treatment format that I have in Keynote, that I can pretty easily go in and tweak. It has like some standard pages that I can drop in, and then, it's just a matter of, dropping in different photos. And then of course, the text needs to change, or the body of the text I normally change per project, so that I can be as specific as possible. I definitely think that it's helped me win jobs. It allows you to show, a certain level of professionalism, and, to communicate visually that you understand the goals and needs of the project, and also, how you want to approach it. I find it to be like a really helpful companion or follow-up to like the creative call. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure like a lot of photographers, I'm much more visual person than I am with my words. So it helps to get it down on paper this way.
I totally agree. And I've, from my perspective, I've seen treatments win projects for Colin as well. And for those of you who are kind of wondering, like, how are photographers putting this together, like what software, I'll second that Keynote is an awesome tool for something like this, because as opposed to, Photoshop or InDesign or whatever you're using, it's so quick and easy to use and to add in images and text. And you don't want to get bogged down by like, the tools of InDesign and worrying about that. Like, it just helps you put something together really quickly. We use it all the time. I use it for production books. I use Keynote for production books as well. So I'd highly recommend it. So I'm gonna just flip through this treatment from a recent project. And I think right off the bat here, this image really spoke to the creative concept for this particular project that we were bidding on. I think all of the images you should use in a treatment should do that. The last thing you want to do is pick images that have nothing to do with the concept you're talking about. But like this image specifically was like dead on exactly what they wanted for this project. So again, I've redacted a decent amount of information here, which is why it looks a little bit weird. But again, right off the start, Colin is expressing gratitude for the project. And he wants to kind of just introduce himself. And it's kind of like a title page about what they're about to see in the treatment. He shows some initial thoughts about the project, talking about how he's going to connect with the talent. I think this was just really well written. Then he starts talking about his approach to the shoot. Oh, and notice, so that previous that treatment was, I think, a 9-page document. This is a 23-page document that Colin put together. I don't think, you don't want to give someone a 300-page document to look at, but I'd say anywhere between, 5 and 30 pages is pretty solid for a treatment. So, pre-production, Colin talked through what that's going to look like. And, a lot of what he wrote here, and reading it again as I was putting this together, some of the stuff for a seasoned art buyer or a client, might be like, yeah, like, of course, we're going to like brainstorm some stuff and we're going to talk about it. And this is how it's going to work. But there are some clients that have never done a photo shoot before. And the more you can give them to chew on to just understand what it's going to look like and how it's going to happen, the more confident they're going to be in you. So I think it doesn't matter how specific or seemingly simple the information that you're including about the pre-production process and the planning process is. I think some clients really need to know what that's going to look like. And I think Colin did a good job of articulating that on this slide. And again, the image on the right here, just perfect for the specific campaign that we were bidding on. So he has a slide here about working with talent. Colin, do you want to just kind of describe how you kind of hit clients over the head with, because I've seen you do it on creative calls and through your treatments and a lot of the projects that you're approached for. I think people hire you because of how well you connect with talent, and you write about it really well. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. I like to try and, I guess, convey to the clients that creating like a comfortable and relaxed mood on set is really is key to getting the right emotions and actions out of talent. And for a little background on me, I photograph a lot of real people talent who aren't professional models. And it's especially true in that case because these are people, who are often not comfortable in front of the camera. They're not used to it. It's very weird. Many of them have never been on a large production before. So, it's hard enough to get comfortable in front of the camera if it's just me and the camera. But when it's me and then, 20 people behind me all fussing over, every detail of their clothing and their hair and all this, it's really important to be able to create that environment where they are comfortable enough to sort of relax. And then we get those moments oftentimes like in the in-between or down moments, when they're caught off guard or they kind of forget that they're, on camera. And it goes true for professional talent as well, where I will sometimes just need time from the clients of the agency to allow us to sort of work through it and get the subjects to a point where we're ready to achieve the right actions and expressions that we're looking for.
And we've seen a lot of agencies and clients be concerned about that. When they get on the phone call, and they're wondering how that's going to work out. And I think to express that not only on the call but in the treatment here is really powerful. And when this is just, if someone wasn't on the creative call with Colin or someone at the client is just kind of looking at his work and doesn't have a sense of him and his personality, having it written down here is perfect. So I think you did a really good job with that here. So Colin mentioned a little bit about set and prop design and wardrobe, and these treatments can be as elaborate as you need. I've seen treatments include actual styling, like wardrobe shots for talent that are going to be used, or actual location scouting. But it's okay to, but typically when you're making a treatment, you haven't gotten to the point where a project has been awarded and you're doing those things yet. So I think it's okay, kind of talk in vague terms. So I think, he mentions a little bit about that here with the set design and props. So this is obviously a newer part of a treatment that I think we should all learn from and we have to think about now. So he talks about his COVID precautions. So that's actually a picture of me taking the temperature of an assistant on a recent shoot we did about a month ago. So, some behind the scenes there. And he talks about how it's going to go down. And again, it's not enough to just tell a client that you've got everything under control and your production team's going to be doing the right thing. Showing a picture that you've done it before, I think is really powerful. And I'll show you another document Colin put together about this in a minute. But he's a whole page here dedicated to just COVID precautions and how we're going to make that happen. Another big thing, obviously, is with COVID, having limited people on set and explaining to clients how that's going to work. For the clients that have, even the ones that have done shoots already since COVID, every photographer operates a little bit differently, and they want to know how they're going to handle it. Every project's a little bit different, and I think to articulate it here in writing is a really good idea. Colin, do you want to sort of talk about how many times you've been asked about this process and how you've been able to articulate it?
Sure. We've probably been asked maybe like 5 or 6 times since we started doing this. And I mean, it's certainly happening, more and more. But I try to, just as quickly and succinctly explain it as possible, because it's, at the end of the day, it's really not terribly complicated. We've all been, on Zoom meetings like this, for the last 6 months. So I feel like people are pretty, aware of how they work. But basically, my digital tech is, in addition to running Capture One, is now also hosting a Zoom meeting. with everyone on board. So they see a screen share, much like we're seeing Craig's screen here. And so they see the capture one screen, and then they also have a webcam feed that we have on a mobile light stand, and we can move that around set, take it to different departments, or they can just see the whole set and what's going on. The one thing that we've learned, and I've started adding, you'll notice here, there's a note about the Zoom feed being considered a hot mic. So I like to point this out at the beginning, that everybody needs to be aware that everything that they're saying on the Zoom call is being broadcast to the entire set. So everything they say will be heard by everybody. And we encourage the ad agency and other people to establish basically more private back channels of communication so that they can have those more sensitive conversations if they need to. And for that, just a simple group text message chain seems to work fine.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, on every shoot, there's stuff that you want the talent to hear, stuff that you don't want the talent to hear, stuff that you want the client to hear and not hear, conversations that the agency and producer want to have together, conversations that the agency and photographer need to talk about. So having everyone know that whatever's being said on the Zoom call, everyone can hear is really important. And we've been able to find those like backdoor channels of communication as well. But to just in the treatment, have information about how that's going to work. And for a client to be able to say, or for an agency to be able to say, yeah, like we talked to Colin, he's got it under control. Check out this treatment. He even describes like how he's going to go about it. I think is brilliant and something that we should continue doing in these treatments. So after all that information, Colin has of course some portfolio pieces, and unlike Clay, and there's no right or wrong way to do it again, but they'll see all these photos are full page, beautiful images. They're all extremely on point to this specific concept. And you can include, multiple photos on a page, but I think this really is attention grabbing. And I think the most important thing was that these were just like hyper specific to this campaign, and showed kind of proof of execution, which is always what clients want to see. Just going to scroll through some more of these. It's a great photo. And there's Colin looking all dapper. Again, I think gratitude is important, and showing clients that you're really interested in the project. So in addition to this treatment, Colin also has a COVID specific document. You want to just talk a second about this?
Yeah, sure. I actually created this one at the request of one of my existing clients. One of my regular clients is the Wharton School of Business at University of Pennsylvania. And we recently did a shoot there on location. And in order to get actually be granted permission to come on campus and to do the shoot, they needed to see basically a formal document for me explaining our COVID-19 protocol. And I decided it was a good idea to just have one of those around. So I took the time to just make basically a small version of a treatment just about this that I can include with every treatment going forward.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Again, it's clients saying that you are ready and prepared is not enough for some clients, even if they don't ask you. I think something like this is great to just have on hand, even if it's not just for the clients. When we produced, actually it was this shoot, these behind the scenes photos, we had a list of protocols that I was sending to the assistants that I was checking availability for, the stylists, the production RV driver, because as soon as you reach out to someone, especially right now, actually this project was kind of, it was pretty, I mean, not that it's not serious anymore, but everyone was like at the height of like, okay, we're now doing this. How are we going to make this work? When I said, hey, wardrobe stylist, are you available for this project? By the way, here are our protocols to make you more comfortable in telling us that you are available and you want to do it. So having a document to send to someone, I think is really powerful. This one I think is fantastic, having the behind the scenes photos too. And you have some more, portfolios of, mask wearing. Was this from your Meals on Wheels? A lot of these?
That is, yeah.
Yeah. So again, I think, this is really well done and kind of a nice supplement to the treatment. Any closing thoughts, Colin?
Yeah, no, I think that you're right. And being able to send that out, to crew too, especially, people's comfort levels going forward with this, are obviously vary quite a bit. And being able to show your crew, especially if it's maybe crew you haven't worked with before, that, you're taking this seriously and valuing their health and safety, I think is important. And to your point, Craig, like when we were producing that shoot, we did have one stylist who just, it was early June, so it was very, it was early into when production opened up here or opened back up, and they weren't comfortable working yet, and I think that that's a respectable decision. But having these documents in place definitely makes that conversation a little bit easier and can help make people feel more comfortable.
Totally. Well, there you are, Clay. What's up, Clay? We were just we looked at your treatment a minute ago, the one that I shared with you the other day. You have any general thoughts about kind of having treatments be something that has helped you win projects, or even just like the design process of it and maybe how they've helped you?
Yeah. So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. When I wanted to develop a treatment, I want it to be like aesthetically on point with my identity, my online identity and branding, and that have that be a very cohesive thing. And so I hired my designer that did my logo to develop basically a plug and play version of my treatment through Adobe Illustrator. So I'm able to go in and just simply plug in numbers, plug in graphics, plug in example photos, maybe switch out some of the behind the scenes, switch out whatever I need to cater to whoever the client is. So whether it's healthcare or it's, I think you showed, what was that? The K-chip one.
Yeah, exactly.
Like some lifestyle, or whether it's tourism or it's entertainment or whatever it is. So I found that to be pretty easy process, and then again it just like cohesively flows with my aesthetic and my identity. And so I came up with two different versions. Well, my designer came up with two different versions of that like plug and play Adobe Illustrator file, in which they look different, but they're still within the same vein. And so that way, like if the client has a different shoot, then they can kind of tell the difference between the two as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think we were talking about how it's important to have something that is 90% ready to go, because so many times we're in this like time crunch where you have an hour to put something together. So being able to just swap in some images and change one or two words is really important. And I've seen you do it a lot with this kind of treatment, and it's always been really powerful. So
yeah, I mean, the only thing where it gets a little crazy is like if you got to do any like storyboards or any like creative ideas that way, that takes a little bit. But I have like pages to where I can just insert storyboards or insert concepts as well, which I didn't have for that particular shoot. And it's kind of rare for me to have that request for the clients I'm working with, but I have that ready to go in case I do need to input some of those storyboards or concepts and things like that.
Yeah, and I think we're talking about the branding as well, and how it's sort of in a kind of mimics what you see on your website and your personality as well, really well, I think, in the treatment.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's the first treatment I designed myself over like 8 hours over one night for like Delta or something. And it took me like forever. And I designed it all in like a PSD Photoshop file, and it took forever. And
I remember that one.
It was just exhausting. I was like, okay, I need to find a better way to do this. So I worked with my designer, my graphic designer on it, and he put together that file that's just super plug and play. And it's just a game changer for me.
Nice. Well, I want to share one more treatment, and then I want to open it up to some Q&A for me and for Colin and for Clay. This one, we don't have this photographer on the line, but let me see if I can share it here. This was one, and again, it's redacted. His name's Cornell Watson. He's down in Durham, North Carolina, and this one is kind of, is really impressive because this was his first large commercial assignment. He did mostly retail stuff. He came to us, being well and over his head with this request from it was for a telecommunications company. And he had no idea what to do, how to bid it. And they were asking for a treatment. So this is where we ended. So again, hi, my name's Cornell. I'm a dope ass black photographer. Like, this is like the perfect thing to say in a treatment. It's just like the best way to show his personality. And in talking with him, I know this really just reflects how he is. So again, it's a really great intro, a bit of a bio. It's simple, it's easy to look at. We got his logo and contact information in all the right places. It goes on. I had to redact some of the brand specific things here, but it's talking again about gratitude. When I heard about the project, I was excited because of this and that, and here's why I would be a good fit specifically for the project. He goes on to there was kind of this creative element that was really important to this project, that he just really dove in and said how he felt about it and how it was going to relate to this project. He talked about, how the production is going to go down, especially given the protocols that were going to be in place. This project, like many we're seeing now, was, hey, we want you to cast friends and family and shoot them at their actual houses. So this document, I think, helped articulate how he was going to go about that specifically, and gave them the peace of mind that he could pull it off, because I think they knew that he had never really done this kind of thing before, but the treatment, I think, was a really powerful thing to explain how he could do it. He showed there's portfolio samples of work that is very much on point for this particular project. This one, he even showed that one of he was asked to present 2 families and their houses as well. So these are real images that he captured to show this client who he was going to photograph and what their house looked like. So Clay, you mentioned sort of sometimes having to provide some creative approaches. Sometimes it's storyboards. In this case, they asked Cornell to come up with some ideas of shots. The creative team had a sense of what they were after, but I think they asked him to come up with a few ideas on how he was going to go about it and what could be done with knowing this family and knowing their location as well. So he did that for this specific family. And then again, this was the other family. There are 2 families and 2 locations. This is their house. Again, additional location options or location images, shots that he was going to be considering. We had the fees and expenses. This is the estimate, we redacted. The fees and expenses were included in here. The terms and conditions were included. And again, gratitude and being thankful. He did get this job. And for being his first production, I think this turned out really well, and I think helped land the project for him. So, so we're at 2:45 here. I know you probably have a lot of questions and just want to, I want to give you the opportunity to ask away. So does anyone want to jump in for any questions, either for me or for Bill or for Clay or Colin or anyone? Nick, what's up?
Let me unmute. All the examples I've seen of treatments have been with portrait and lifestyle photographers. And, there's so much to talk about. You talk about the interacting of the talent. You talk about the authentic moments. There's a lot to talk about. And, I'm shooting still life, product, and automotive. And, occasionally I do some portraits and people are involved. But for the most part, I'm shooting objects. And I struggle with, I can only talk about lighting so much. So I kind of struggle with that. And I was just wondering any tips on what, I guess I just have to have a shorter, smaller show more samples and really not do a lot of talking. I don't know. That's what I've done so far.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And yeah, I was going to say, focus as much as you can on the technical aspect of it and your experience. So, there may be instances where a client wants you to photograph a car and, they're not the kind of client that is going to need the car detailed and, doesn't necessarily care about that. But there are clients that are going to very much care about that. So you might want to talk about your experience and the people that that can make a car look as good as it possibly can, and how you're going to shoot it, where you're going to shoot it. And I think if you feel like you've exhausted all of that stuff, then let it be about your personality and how you work with clients on set. And again, it doesn't have to be very elaborate. Even just the most basic concepts of, we're going to collaborate together. Here are the people that I trust and who I work with. Here's how the day is going to go. Like, here's how my post-production process typically goes down. It's a little bit different than a lifestyle shoot because this is what we have to do with cars specifically. If there's any like technical, maybe not necessarily lighting, but anything that is all about, or specifically about cars, to show them why you are the best car photographer out there, like that's what you should be pitching to them, I think.
Also, Nick, if I can jump in, if compared to these other treatments, which were for projects on location, if you're working in a studio, you might want to show a little bit more about your facilities, your makeup room, what the kitchen looks like, what the hangout area looks like. Are you going to be playing music? What's the parking like? What's the accessibility to mass transit like? A studio shoot has a whole set of considerations that location shoots don't have, and that might be something. If you've got a good facility, that's something you might want to play up.
Yeah, we have plenty of COVID protocols for the studio. Yesterday, I shot a lot of behind the scenes of all of our setups, so I'll be able to share a lot of that too. So anyway, cool, thanks.
Yeah, I think behind the scenes shots are great. I think it just shows, again, the space, your lighting setup. There are some clients, we've gotten asked occasionally, like, what kind of equipment is the photographer going to be using? Because I think clients have gotten to a studio and have been working with some inexperienced photographer, and, they show up with something that is not impressive. And they want to show the clients that, like, we have like really superior equipment and we're going to be doing this the right way, and we've hired the right person to do it. So showing, like, if you have a couple behind the scenes shots where it's something like super elaborate, you have like a million lights going on and things are flagged and you have your tech workstation next to you, something that looks super technical can be good, but also something, maybe some funny behind the scene moments of your studio as well. I think that's great to show just as much as the final product. Okay. Or another thought, the before and after with the retouching, you could show what you do in post, show a raw image next to the finished product, so they know that you have the technical know-how to take a picture and make it look like a portfolio piece.
Cool. Okay, thanks.
Sure. Craig, one other thing about the Cornell Watson project that I wanted to jump in on. With that, the client, the agency had a pretty extensive creative brief that they basically presented to Cornell. And to me, I was on the creative call with him, and so that creative brief provided us with, in some ways, a blueprint for what we needed to return to them, because they were very specific about the types of pictures they were looking for and not looking for, the type of mood, and their own ideas for shot lists. And so it was up to Cornell and Craig and me to sort of reply and echo a lot of those points. Even though it's somewhat perfunctory, you've got to make sure that they understand, that you understand what the job is. It reminds me of a funny documentary I saw about the making of Jaws, and when they were first interviewing, and of course Steven Spielberg directed Jaws when he was 27 years old, and I just remember them talking about the producers remembering interviewing directors for the film, And the directors, they'd given the directors all the script, and the directors were sort of pitching, basically creating their own treatment. And a lot of the directors kept talking about the whale. And the producers are like, dude, there's no whale. It's a shark movie. But Steven Spielberg came in, and he knew that it was a shark movie, and he was able to really share with them that he really understood in depth what the project meant. Because nobody's going to say, hey, here's $250,000, do this project, without really feeling that you as a creative person really understand and are sort of buying into and signing on to everything that entails. And that's really, in a nutshell, what a good treatment is going to convey.
And to add to that, I think, that just so you guys know, like in the video production world, not even just, especially movies and theatrical video, video production companies, when they're bidding on TV commercials, that sort of thing, treatments are just the norm, and they have been for a very long time. And I think, as stills and video collide in all sorts of ways, the request for treatments from photographers may be just another kind of extension of those two worlds coming together. But that's the MO. When a director and a production company are bidding on a project, that they put a ton of time and effort into their treatment, because they have to convey that they are the right people for the job. And that's not just, one photographer, that's a whole team of people that are potentially involved with that project. So I think it's just important to know that's definitely the norm. And I've seen some very lengthy treatments be put together for, broadcast spots, and a ton of work goes into it. And sometimes they don't get the job, but that's part of it,
Can I ask a question about that, related to that?
Sure.
Would you ever, if you were doing a photo treatment, sort of upsell or tack on of a video component?
I think that's a broader question, just about sort of pitching a client. It depends on the situation and what the project is. I think it's always a good idea to try to tell clients you can do more than what they're asking you to do, but you don't want to necessarily pitch something that they don't want you to do, or they have covered, or take it a step in the wrong direction. I think it's fine to hint at it. If you say, because the thing is, if you pitch a client and they ask you, hey, we need these great shots, and it's like it's going to take you a whole day to do it, and you say, hey, how about we do video? You may have just opened up a can of worms that makes it exponentially more complicated. So, if it seems like the right opportunity, I think it's fine to say, either on your website or, in your pitch, hey, if you need some video B-roll, I got the guy or girl to help you make that happen. But you might just want to be careful on pitching things that weren't included in the initial brief. And I also know, sometimes on the photographer's end, on the production end, if there's an agency involved, namely the large creative agencies in the world, they're coming to you for execution, not necessarily for creative direction. They have executive creative director, senior creative director, and associate creative director, junior creative director, and copywriter. They did that already, and they talked with their client, they pitched it, and they found Matthew Ricola, and they're like, hey, he's the guy for the job. He's gonna now make it happen. So if you go back to them and say, hey, what if we change your creative concept and it's something different, it's not necessarily gonna be well received. But I think at the same time, if it's the kind of thing where it's like, hey, why don't we do it this way? I think agencies love ideas. There's never an end of ideas. It's never a bad thing to give ideas. Just be careful to not present something that takes a project and moves it into a very complicated, challenging, it puts you in a situation that you aren't able to deliver on the idea that you had.
Yeah. I wonder, because you hear a lot about, they're hiring photographers for creative ideas too. I've always been unsure how to, or where to draw that line between doing what they ask, which is more of what I tend to do, and pushing it a little bit further.
I think you probably have the opportunity more so if you're working with brands or corporations directly, if there isn't a creative agency involved, to maybe push the envelope or over deliver. So, it's one thing to like push an idea on them, say, hey, how about video? And they're like, well, how much is that going to cost? And all of a sudden you've blown the budget. It's another thing to like, maybe pre-COVID, when you could have as many people as you wanted on set, like just bring on your person that's going to capture some video and say, hey guys, I got my assistant coming, they're going to capture some video, like no big deal. And then a couple of days later, you send them this like amazing edited video project. They're going to be like, wow, he really over delivered on this one. Like now we know he does that. Like let's bring him on for the next thing. So I think you just need to be careful on how you present ideas and how you can kind of just take it upon yourselves to over deliver when the opportunities arise.
Gotcha.
And one other thought about over delivering, I think any creative director who is presenting a creative brief to a photographer is hoping and really expecting that the photographer is going to not simply just parrot back that creative direction, but also really internalize it and think about ways that they can use their individual creativity to even take the ideas a little bit further. You want to be careful not to make it seem like you're going to totally reinvent their creative, but I think your job as a photographer is not just to sort of do the exact creative brief as it's written, but to sort of bring to it your own creativity that they're hoping and expecting you're going to bring to the job.
I guess that was the gist of my question, is how do you find that balance in a treatment?
Yeah, I would say just go a little bit beyond, to show that you're like 110%. One other quick thought that occurred to me, Craig, as you were just talking was the idea that I remember for those of you who are sort of shooting a lot of editorial and just starting to shoot some advertising, I can remember my own experience in that transition and feeling like I remember realizing that editorial is like being a one-person operation and like sort of doing everything yourself because of the time constraints and the budget constraints and the experience constraints. But once you start doing advertising projects, no client expects you to do it yourself or know how to do it. I mean, when I was assisting, I remember there were times when the photographer who I was working for wasn't even clicking the shutter of the camera. I mean, he was just standing there sort of like talking and things were happening all around him. So you want to get into the mindset, you want to pivot your mindset as you do more advertising projects to think that your job is not that you have to know how to do everything or do everything yourself, but that you have to be comfortable building a team around you and just making sure that all those things happen that are supposed to happen. And I think you look at any ad agency, the whole nature of an agency model is simply on any given project, they're going to pull together all the elements that they need to successfully complete that project. And you should be thinking the same thing as a photographer. And you should be thinking when you're creating these treatments, you don't want to misrepresent your capabilities or your experience, but you certainly want to present your best foot forward. And you want to say, there's no harm in talking about your team, even though you might have only worked with that makeup artist or that hairstylist or that wardrobe stylist once before. If you're talking about the team that you're going to build for their project, that's the nature of putting together a team is part and parcel of any big project, and you just got to get comfortable sort of talking about your team.
Yeah, I think that extends to location scouts as well, or casting directors, or talent agencies, or producers, even assistants and digital techs. Like, in one of those treatments in the expert advice article, the photographer basically listed all the people and biographies of all of them. You don't necessarily need to do all of that, but to Bill's point, I think it's important to know that it's okay to show a client that it's not just you. And additionally, that you have people lined up. Not that you can bring on a wardrobe stylist, but you have the best wardrobe stylist, and this is what they've done for you before. Sometimes it gets hyper specific. We did a project where we needed an ice stylist. It was for a food project, we found, it was one thing for us to say, like, yeah, we can probably find someone to style some frozen stuff. But it was another for us to, in a treatment, say, here's the person we're going to hire. We've already talked to them. here's portfolio examples from them. Like, this is why you should hire us, because we know this guy and he's going to be awesome to work with. Or, we know this, this hair and makeup stylist, she's the best, and this is what she's done specifically for us. Like, look how amazing this is. Or any kind of combination of that. I think, to Bill's point, it's okay to show that, and I think it gives clients the confidence that you're going to be able to pull it off. And I don't think it's like giving away too much info. You wonder at some point, you don't want a client to hire another photographer and be like, hey, Clay showed us this awesome ice artist. Like, we should just use that stylist, and we want to work with this photographer. So, you're not going to give them like the email address of the person that you're recommending, but I think it's okay to not worry too much about that, to show them that you have everyone lined up and, they're ready to go. Anyone else have any questions or comments, or want to chime in about experience with treatments or pitching clients in any other way? Has anyone pitched a client in any way that hasn't been a treatment in any creative way?
Can I just ask a question? Can everyone hear me? Am I good?
Yep.
First of all, thanks for having this discussion, and thanks for Clay and Colin being on the chat with their treatments, being able to show up. That was great. I'm not going to take up a lot of time, but I'll keep it really short. I come from the lowest of low budgets, coming from a newspaper background, which has no budget. And I'm seeing these like treatments, and I'm like, wow, that was 4 times my salary in 1 year of newspapers. I guess my question is, how do you know your worth, if that makes sense? Because I know what I'm worth, and I know what I feel like I'm worth, but I don't want to underbid, I don't want to overbid, I don't know how to do all that stuff. And how do you bring that all into pulling a treatment together that you feel comfortable with, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think for every, whether it's these treatments or like the pricing and negotiating articles you write, or the portfolio shots you see on our website or any photographer's website, for every like big flashy project that we show or do, there are a million small projects that happen that, event coverage, newspaper assignments, magazine assignments, not fantastic end pieces, but that's stuff that's paying the bills. So, if it's a project that's only going to pay a couple of $100, I think it's important first to be cognizant of the time that you're spending, pitching it. Because if you're spending 5 days pitching a $200 assignment, you may have just, spent that money on your time alone. But I think, if you don't have the opportunity to present a treatment, the treatment really comes in the form of a phone call you have with your client. So with an agency, it's called a creative call. But, I think when you get on the phone with a client, that's your time to shine, and your time to convey all of this as quickly as you possibly can. And I think, once it gets to the point where, there's a couple more zeros potentially in the bottom line, then you can take your time to put something more formal together. And, I think it's just about understanding how much time you should take pitching a potential project, given the budget that you might know it's going to be.
And if you don't mind, I'll jump in a little bit as well. The idea of what is a job worth, when you think about if you're coming, because I started on newspapers as well, and I never dreamed that there were $100,000 photo shoots. I was doing $50 photo shoots, and so it's important to understand the difference between what is it worth to you as the photographer and what is it worth to the end user, the customer, the client. And so any job that you're going to bid on, you want to think of it in terms of, there's sort of a bottom line of what is it worth for you to load up your car and go do that shoot, and that's the low end. But you will always want to think about how is the client going to use these pictures, and how is the client going to benefit from these pictures. And it's not ever about that it's easy for you or that it doesn't take much time. Sometimes clients will say, oh, this is a super easy shoot and it's going to take you an hour. That has very little to do with the value to them. It has zero to do with the value to them. So you always want to be thinking about what is the value of these pictures to the client. And even though it might be very easy for you to create those pictures, the reason they're calling you is because it's very difficult for them to do it. And so always call Craig if you're not sure. But keep in mind that it's about sort of understanding what's customary in the industry. Like you want to deliver an estimate that is going to not surprise the client either by being too expensive or by being too cheap. You want to be commensurate with the project, and you want to practice having those conversations with clients. Don't be intimidated by those kinds of conversations, and just make it your business to learn about how to write a licensing agreement, how to understand what are all the different production elements that you're going to need for a particular shoot. You should have a cheat sheet of questions that you will want to sort of revise as you get more experience. There are lots of questions that you have to ask for any shoot. Clients are not going to come to you with all the information you need to put together an estimate. You need to learn how to think about all the different possible questions to ask, so that when you have that 15-minute phone call with the client, you can get all those questions answered. And I used to just think of it in terms of visualizing the final photographs. If the client needs 6 photographs, put those photographs in your head and look at each photograph and think about, okay, there's a staircase in that picture. Am I going to build that staircase, or am I going to find a location? How do you make, do I need models? If I have models, do I need casting? Do I need catering? Just think about all the things going backwards from the photograph all the way to everything you have to do, every phone call you have to make in order to make that final thing happen. And then just list all those things. And then that list is going to generate lots of questions for you. And just keep asking questions until you're satisfied with all that. And then you'll be able to put together a proposal that actually gets to that final product.
I don't know if this was mentioned or anything else, but I came in late. Sorry, guys. Treatments tend to score more jobs than if I just gave them a PDF of an estimate too. I think there's something to be said. It holds a little bit more weight with these clients if you deliver something that looks like a treatment over like a 1-page estimate with the contract or agreement. So again, I've landed more jobs and been awarded more bids because I offered that treatment, and I took the extra hour or 2 hours or whatever it took to put something like that together than just handing them some sort of simple quote on a single PDF page. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. I've seen it happen. And yeah, I think that's why it's good to have something ready to go, because sometimes you just you're not provided with enough time to do it. So having even the most basic thing put together is really important. And actually, it reminds me, speaking of sort of like the quality of the treatment itself, reminds me of, this time, we do a lot of portfolio events where we bring books to clients and agencies. And we asked, we were going to this one agency, and this one photographer was just perfect for what they told us they were working on. And we called him up and we said, hey, we need your book to bring to this agency. And he's like, oh, I don't have a book. And we're like, make a book tonight, do it, and send it to us so we can bring it to New York tomorrow. So he, in a scramble, obviously he wasn't going to put together a very flashy thing, but in a scramble on regular printer paper, he printed out a bunch of photos. He put some handwritten notes next to the photos. He stapled it together and FedExed it to us. And I get it. I'm like, oh man, this might be rough to show, but next to this like portfolio with like an iPad integrated into the lid and this like flashy $5,000 thing, gets to the portfolio event, we put it down, and his portfolio was like the hit of the whole thing. Like the clients loved it because he put images in there that were specific to what we were talking about with that client. That was like the whole thing. And the handwritten, they're like, oh my God, this is so like, he wrote notes for us and everything on this. This is amazing. It probably cost him 10 cents. It probably cost him more in postage than it did in printing, and so it goes to show you that even like that little bit extra effort, that's last minute, even if it's not something that's super flashy, can help you stand out from other photographers. That one was a print portfolio, but the same thing goes for a treatment, which you can make digitally.
Clay, going off of Clay's last comment about, getting awarded a job based on the treatment. Have you guys ever been in a situation where you felt like you were far from getting the job, where you were just thrown in as a triple bid, or just, you know, the some reason that you didn't feel like the job was yours, and then the treatment pushed it over the top and you were awarded?
Yeah. I mean, I've put in bids for jobs that are not even within the scope of what I do before. And so I remember doing that for a particular job. I forgot what it was, but it was just like some lifestyle stuff. And I just didn't have anything that was relative to that. It was healthcare. That's right. Because I hadn't shot any healthcare stuff. And so what I did was just create, instead of showing my work that I've done, um, which I didn't have any of that healthcare work. I just pulled some samples of stuff that I think that I could do. And then I claimed that as just sort of like inspiration from outside sources. And I had that as sort of a page. And that did win me the bid, where I included just some like general sort of work that could be relative to healthcare. And then I included some like more focused inspiration shots of what I was going to accomplish, kind of like a mood board. So that's what I had to do. And so there are times where like I'll have, RFPs for jobs that aren't even really relative to what I do. And then I kind of have to fill those gaps with just some sourced inspiration. And so that seemed to work in the past, at least. I don't know, Craig, you might have some more thought on that.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I was explaining earlier that as a totally a fine thing to do in a treatment, as long as you clearly articulate that those photos aren't yours and that you show some of your stuff, and then clearly say, like, this is a mood board of shots that I found on Getty or on the internet, to articulate what I want to do with your concept. Because again, the last thing you want to do is show them a photo that you didn't take and have them think that you did, and then you can't deliver that thing. But yeah, I mean, I think treatments, if you are a photographer that is reaching above and beyond, and I think a client knows that you really, really, really want to work with them, and the other photographer that they've been working with for a while that like they're kind of getting tired of and like isn't putting the effort anymore, is kind of slacking, that treatment can put you over the edge. And I think, it might convince a client to work with someone new. So we've seen that happen.
Mm-hmm. And to build off what you were saying too about talking about your crew, if your crew is pretty specialty. We worked with a photographer last month who, it was their first big commercial job as well, and they had come from a music and editorial background. And in putting together the estimate, we were given a budget that I thought was insanely high. So we felt like this was, far off already. And in putting together the treatment, we talked about the food stylist. It was a food shoot, and the food stylist had a huge resume of commercial clients. So just being able to show some of that food stylist's client names on there, drop those client names, was a big hit. And then also, to your point too, Craig, about what work you're going to show, we had time that this photographer actually did some test shoots and made work specifically to pitch for this project. Was able to just in one evening bang out like 5 or 6 photographs and put them in this deck, and it won. They got the job, and it was awesome.
Well, I wish every project had a bigger budget than we wanted. That's great. It's a great way to start a project, is to say,
yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Let's see how we can work up to this number as opposed to working down.
Mm-hmm.
Dan and Amy, what's going on with you guys? It's good to see you. You guys have any experience or questions about treatments for any of the projects you've been working on?
No, I wish I did a treatment. Actually, I think we emailed you quickly about this recent project we were doing, and I wish I did a treatment for it, and I didn't. I kind of just did, like, there was a producer involved already, and
there was some back and forth.
There was some back and forth, and then there was like a creative call and a Google Doc, and they wanted some samples from me, and then they wanted like some more samples, and like, how is I gonna cheat? And I feel like a lot of like the questions and back and forth could have been, boom, if I put together like exactly what you're showing today, if I put that together, signed, sealed, and delivered from the beginning, I feel like it would have answered a lot of their questions and like made them confident from the beginning. Totally. Where now they're confident and like they're like, great, we chose the right guy. But I feel like it was almost like, okay, I was awarded the job, but it almost like even after I was awarded the job, it was like, can you show us a few more samples of this type of thing? And it's such a, yeah, so it was good, but I wish I did a treatment. So now I know to just do it for everything. So this was very informative.
Good. And now you can hopefully get something up and ready to go. So it only takes a couple tweaks to kind of make it before you send it out. You know, you don't have to spend a ton of time on every single one. But I mean, just overall, to kind of wrap it up, I mean, I think a treatment can be super simple. It can be extremely complex and include more info than it's necessary. Most treatments fall somewhere in between those two spectrums. And I think you have to read your client a little bit. So, you know, if it's BBDO, you can know that they've seen every kind of treatment under the sun. So, you know, you have some stuff to live up to. If it's a client, it's a law firm around the corner that's never done a photo shoot before, you might need to include in your treatment kind of just how a photo shoot works, like the basics of like, here's how it looks when I come into your space, and here's kind of the amount of the room that I need to set it up. And yes, I have lights and I'm going to bring them, you know, stuff like that.
What's funny about that is that we just got a law firm around the corner for next week. So that's like exact, that's never done a photo shoot and was like, can you tell me what exactly is involved in this? So this is a perfect opportunity to be like, yep, here you go.
Exactly. So I think it's just about, you know, tailoring your treatment to who you're delivering it to and trying to read between the lines a little bit on the people that are looking at your work and hoping to hire you. Any massive project for a big campaign, there's a lot on the line. The people that are hiring you, Bill said earlier, you know, their jobs are on the line to make sure that it goes well. So you got to sell them and you got to convince them that you're the right person to do it. And that's really what the treatment is about. Even, you know, $500 assignment, $500,000 assignment, like they want to know that you're the right person to do it. So with that, always available, you know, for a phone call or email, you know, happy to bounce ideas and help you guys make treatments and just, you know, continue the conversation. So might want to wrap it up there, I guess. But we appreciate you guys.
Please don't forget that you can hire Craig to do a treatment because he's good at it and he has a lot of experience at it. All right, so Craig, you more to say, or should I just wrap it up then? Okay, so Craig, thanks a million. That was excellent. And Clay and Colin, thanks for helping out today. That was really great for you to help us. One quick thought about our member open house meetings that we're doing. We've sort of settled into a monthly routine now, but we can do them more frequently if the interest is there. If any of you have ideas for subjects, for topics, feel free to email me or Craig or Brian, and we'll try to accommodate you. We're finding that it's nice to combine the member open house videos with expert advice articles. So we're in a regular habit of revising expert advice articles periodically. We've got about 50 of them now. And if you have ideas for additional ones, just let us know. So with that, thank you all for coming. And we look forward to seeing you next month.
All right. So I met Bill in Miami. I had a beer with Brian on Cape Cod a couple weeks ago. So now, Craig, it's your turn, man. So one of these days all right. So one of these days our paths will cross.
We'll make it happen.
All right, guys. Good seeing you all.
Thanks, guys.